Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thank you for coming to watch. So I've got you guys an update on two massive winter storm systems that are really going to get going here as we get to the end of this week and eventually into next week. We're talking about two very dangerous winter storms that are going to be coming through portions of the Eastern U.S. All right, this is probably going to be one of the biggest updates I've ever done. As you can see, I've got a million tabs open, so we're going to be talking about a lot of things. You feel free to fast forward to a part that you want to look at because this is going to be a jam-packed with information filled update here. We're just talking about so much new information that has come out of the model since last time we talked, which was yesterday. All right, and there's a lot there's just a lot to cover right now. All right, so take a look here at our current radar. You can see we've got an upper level low up here just north of Great Lakes. This is trying to phase with that piece of energy down here in the southeast. This is currently moving out. We talked about that yesterday. This is not going to be doing anything other than becoming a big snowstorm, but outweigh in the Atlantic, and then that might end up hitting our friends in Newfoundland. All right, but here it is. This is that big trough that we're worrying about. That's going to be coming down through the southern U.S. This is eventually going to eject across the eastern U.S., and that's actually going to become what is going to be our big snowstorm there in the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. I've got you guys a big update on that, and we're just going to get rounds and rounds of storm systems that come in from the Pacific Ocean, and that's where we're getting so much storm minutes from. It's also because of so many dips in the jet stream with piece of energy flying around, and you get dips in the jet stream that allows piece of energy to connect and phase together. That's where we get big storm systems. All right, so moving on here to our alerts, you can see we can already see some winter storm alerts going out for the Southwest. We saw that system coming through, and we actually are dealing with winter storm conditions already. We have winter storm warnings going out for portions of northern New Mexico, with surrounding areas seeing winter weather advisories going all the way out from eastern Nevada all the way over to western Kansas. So a big area here that's going to be affected by this winter storm is actually under at least winter weather advisories, some winter storm warnings. All right, but this is stretching in northern Texas. I don't think we're going to see snow down into the Panhandle, but we're getting close. Right now, it's just looking like rain. But north of that, up in here into South Dakota, and then into Nebraska, and into portions of Colorado, that's where we have dense fog advisories. We're not seeing any precipitation yet. We're just seeing those very low-lying clouds. So just be aware that there may be some dangerous travel conditions because the visibility might drop. Out towards California here in the Sierras, north of the Sierras, or in the northern Sierras, really, we have winter storm watches, and then really down here in the southern portion of the Sierras, we have winter storm warnings. All right, in this light blue shade, we have freeze watches going out for portions of southern Arizona. We're seeing very cold conditions move through the southern U.S. We had freeze warnings up yesterday, and for a long time there in the southeast, just between Georgia and Florida, those have been lifted. We're starting to see warm air return as our severe weather is going to ramp up in the next coming days. All right, so taking a look here at the southwestern United States, we're going to be looking at some big time snowfall that's going to be moving through, and we've got to talk about this big winter storm that's going to be dropping a lot of snow. All right, so taking a look at what the scene was. This is right around 5 p.m. today. I think this is an Eastern time here. All right, so just, this is based off of what time we're looking at here. All right, so we didn't really have much going on, although the storminess was back into portions of Arizona and the rest of the Southwest. This is really the South Central that we're looking at, though. All right, but watch as this upper level low starts to move down, and it just continues to dig down into the southern U.S. And we see this really evolve, and we're seeing a lot of very heavy mountain snow. All right, guys, these upper elevations of New Mexico into Colorado, and then eventually into portions of Texas, Panhandle of Oklahoma, and then into Kansas. We're gonna see very heavy snow. All right. But I think that this could be so heavy at times that we could have whiteout conditions, blizzard conditions possible, as long as we have the winds there. But, we're talking about big-time snowfall with this system, and you can see that there is still some warm air nearby, so this is going to be a very heavy, wet snow for some areas farther down here into Texas. Some freezing rain also showing up there into portions of southeastern New Mexico. But watch as the system continues to move on, that snow quickly starts to spread. And if you're in northern Texas, guys, I think that these winter storm warning, they're really going to get stretched down into this region. Look at all this extremely heavy snow, all right, that's going through the rest of New Mexico, but into Texas, northern Texas, guys. Once again, I do think that we're going to see winter storm warnings start to affect this area, and I think that the snow is going to be very heavy. If you're just to the east of any of this snowfall, you could definitely still see it because it's still going to be drifting off to the east, but it's as it meets up with this warm front, this warm sector here, a lot of that snow is going to change over to rainfall, and so we could still see the very heavy wet snow into northern Texas. Some of this will be accumulating as long as the ground is cold enough, which in some areas, a lot of areas, it won't be. All right, so this will melt a lot, but it may just be so intense that it's just going to accumulate. All right, so definitely some big totals there possible, but this system is just continuing to rotate here in that classic counterclockwise direction. As the system evolves, though, we see this Gulf low begins to pop up here right around just the southern coast of Texas, and I think this could actually start to replace our first main low that is off still into New Mexico, and so that's what we're going to see here. We're going to see this become a negatively tilted trough with this line of storms beginning to form. This is not that big severe weather event or possible outbreak that everyone's been talking about. That's not what this is. This is just the beginning of what is going to be our system that's going to be moving into the Northeast. This one has a severe potential to it. It's just not very high. So these will be thunderstorms. There right now is a level 1 out of 5, which is a marginal risk for severe weather in this area. I don't expect much from this. I would just expect some classic thunderstorms down here in Louisiana and eastern Texas. All right, I'll keep you guys posted if this, if the forecast just ramps up. All right, but I really doubt it. That it will. All right, but north of this, back into the cold front, look at this. We could start to see snow. Okay, in the portions of northern and central Arkansas. All right, that's pretty far south, but some freezing rain though showing up down there in central Arkansas. Maybe some ice accumulations. We'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. Really depends on just how long this lasts and if this actually lasts on the NAM here. But just north of that, back into that cold front, we see more of that snowfall starting to move now up into Kansas and Missouri there. All right, as the system continues to move off to the east, these thunderstorms persist though as that Gulf low begins to move with the system, and it actually falls apart, so it doesn't technically become a negatively tilted trough because your main low pressure is still, it's moving with those lines of thunderstorms. It's not, the line of thunderstorms is usually attached to the system like that. All right, that is usually what happens and what you get with a negatively tilted trough. All right, but what we have here is we have that the low pressure center is right in the middle of that line of thunderstorms rather than north of it. All right, so that system is continuing to move off the east, but as it moves off to the east, it will become more dynamic and it will become stronger. All right, but it's really, the question is how much of that strength is it going to maintain as it moves off to the east? And I'm going to answer that question in the next later in the video. All right, so take a look here at our current projected snowfall totals. This is on the NAM here. All right, you can see it's pretty significant, but the mountain snow, the heavier mountain snow, is way out here into Colorado, southwestern Colorado. We're going for well over a foot of snow here, and that's really for this entire band here of southwestern Colorado. Going up north, we're going to see similar amounts. Surrounding areas, though, of those upper elevations, I think we'll see multiple inches of snow, but it's these tiny pockets that let you know that these are upper elevations. These mountains here, these mountainous regions, all right, that's where we're going to see upwards of 7, we're going to see more than 7 inches of snow, and that is definitely a lot of snow, guys, and it's nothing that you haven't seen if you're in the upper elevations, but it's definitely going to be an impactful system. And down here into New Mexico, this is really showing up as maybe the hardest hit area. We could actually see widespread, 12-inch plus area here in this pink here, but right around 10 to 12 inches is what you could expect. And this is stretching into areas that aren't necessarily in those upper elevations, even into southern Colorado. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 10 inches somewhere out here. But Even into Kansas, we could be talking about up to 5, maybe 6 inches of snow. But southern Kansas, look at this, 7 inches of snow. So maybe as the system persists, as it moves on, even though the snow won't be as heavy, if it's going to get bigger, that band of snow, we could be dealing with more substantial and just more, a bigger area that's going to see these bigger snowfall totals. But 6 to 7 inches of snow certainly possible around the border of south central Kansas down to uh, northern Oklahoma. Notice how the Panhandle though is kind of on its own because that storm is going to have its little midway point where it's going to have that weak point, and then it's going to start to re-strengthen. All right, that's why we don't see as much snow. It's kind of all over the place here. We see back here on the initial front of the storm, it comes in very strong. Then it starts to die down a little just after moving into Texas. Here it goes. Here it goes. It ramps back up going into Oklahoma and Kansas. But the rest of Kansas, again, seeing multiple inches of snow. Same thing for areas all the way up to maybe even western Nebraska. We could see 1 to 3 inches of snow out there, 1 to 3 inches with some locally higher amounts possible into Colorado. All right, eastern Colorado. All right, but that snow out in Missouri. All right, it's not looking like much, but it could be as far east as St. Louis, where we could actually be dealing with an inch of snow or so. All right. But same thing for even as far. I mean, this is pretty impressive, but this could actually make it as far east as portions of western Illinois. So very far east that we're seeing that snow there. But into southern into southern Missouri here, we're talking about maybe up to 5 inches of snow. And guys, that's a lot of snow for the system to be moving all the way through here. And it's actually going to be it's going to be weakening at a point, but then it's going to re-strengthen. It's going to be able to bring that snow all the way over to Missouri. So that's a sign that this storm could maintain its strength, but it really isn't going to be able to maintain its strength all the way over to the Eastern U.S. All right. So that brings us to our next part of the update. We're going to be comparing the GFS, the Canadian model. We're introducing the Canadian model today, and the European model. We're going to be looking at all three major models, take a look at what they're all saying, all right, in terms of snowfall. The forecast has been changing ridiculously today. We've seen the European model go from this morning saying over a foot for New York City to going for just a few inches of snow. The GFS has been flipping sides. The models are all over the place, and time is running out. So we got to figure this out, guys. All right. So starting out with the GFS, the most major model that people look at for snowfall. All right. So after the system moves out, this is actually plays a big role in what the first stage is for that system that's coming in. We're gonna have high pressure. It's moderately strong here. But we've got dry, very cold air in place here. We'll look at our temperatures. We'll switch this over quickly to our temperatures. All right. And you can see we're widespread in the 20s, in the teens here. This is the morning hours of January the 5th, which is Friday. All right, so we're definitely below freezing. We're well below freezing, and everybody's cold enough for snow at this point if you're behind these blue lines here, which signifies your cold front. But watch as the system moves up. This cold front and these blue lines, they start to retreat because of this warm front. Look at the surging warm air coming up with the system. It's picking up all that moisture from the Atlantic and the Gulf, and it's bringing it up the coast with it. So here it comes. It's coming up the coast from the southeast. We're seeing snow start to enter portions of northern Kentucky into portions of Indiana and Ohio. And then we can actually see a pretty nasty wintry mix starting to show up there for the Cumberland Plateau area, just maybe to the northeast of there. We could be talking about a freezing rain snow mix with some rain mixing in as well. But notice how it takes a long time for this to change over, but we start to see the heavy snow start to evolve there into that same area that we saw yesterday on the GFS, right in between Virginia and West Virginia. That's where we see that first pocket of heavy snow right around 1 p.m., so right around midday Saturday. All right, so we're entering this weekend. It's mostly raining out into Ohio, but things are starting to change here. We're starting to see just more of those blues start to show up, and this is really when things just, kind of explode here a little bit. Not too much. This isn't looking as bad as it was yesterday. If you want to say bad, talking about, a lot of snowfall, this really isn't looking as much as a significant system than it was looking like yesterday. All right, but here it is. It's very big here. We see, with the snow. All right, I kind of exaggerate here, but you could definitely see that there is quite a bit of heavy snow, though, going down into southern, south. This is south central Pennsylvania down to Maryland. Northern Maryland has been undergone constantly on the GFS for the heaviest snowfall. This is going into Virginia and West Virginia. So we're getting to the overnight hours of Sunday, or sorry, Sunday into Monday here. All right. So sorry. So we're getting Saturday into Sunday. I apologize about that. All right. So here we go. This is Saturday night. So you're going to bed Saturday, and snow is about to enter New York City. Look how close this is. I'll draw that 32-degree line. All right. This is that snow and rain separation line. Look how close that is. I mean, if this were to move on, all right, you'd think if this system is moving like that, all right, if this system were to move like this and this low would not move through the coastline, that this snow would move like that and that this would enter New York City. That is still a possibility, but it's just looking like this system is it's going to take more of an inland track and it's going to move up like that. All right, and that's just going to bring the snow north of the city. That's a big question mark that is still left. All right, but we watch what happens and notice how we get to this is overnight Saturday into Sunday. Look at this heavy snow now entering northern Long Island, the very tip of northern Long Island. The rest of the island seeing heavy rainfall. It's very close in New York City. Right now, it looks like all of the islands of New York City are experiencing heavy rainfall, but right on its door, there's a burst of extremely heavy snowfall into northern New Jersey. All right, this is going to be counties away from New York City. That's how close this is going to be. It's very close, and this could be completely different tomorrow. All right, but time is running out once again. A lot of heavy snow for surrounding areas, though. We're starting to see snow enter Boston, the rest of southern New England, seeing really mostly snowfall, and then we can see up into upstate New York. We start to see snowfall. So a much bigger system than the models first anticipated in terms of width. After we get through Saturday. Saturday is when the system's still going to be pretty small, but Sunday, I think, is when this thing's going to really get going here. But that warm air is really surging up with the system. And here it is. That low is actually taking a more inland track than I even drew there. So that's just going to bring more moisture up farther inland into places like southern New Jersey and then just south of Long Island into maybe as far north as southern New England. All right. But watch as this pulls out. We start to see heavy snow enter portions of southeastern Massachusetts and then into Rhode Island. We see heavy snowfall. On the backside, though, we see an upper level low that will come through from Canada down to meet the system here in the Northeast. And this could actually phase together. And the GFS has been hinting that we're going to see backside snowfall, and that could bring more snow to areas that maybe wouldn't see as much snow from the first band here. That's what we see here. More snowfall on the backside. That would be a big one for New York City, though. But the GFS is still sticking with the idea that we're going to stay as all rainfall for New York City. But once again, the snow is very close. Some ice showing up for Long Island there. All right, but the system begins to move out, and finally you see that widespread snowfall finally get down farther south. But that's just because it's cold. It's getting pushed up, but this cold front is still very strong. It's just that warm air is just it's coming up with the system, and the system's strong. Therefore, it gets through that cold front. But right after that warm air moves out, that cold front's just gonna dive down, and that is when any leftover precipitation is just gonna get eaten up by this cold front. It's gonna change all over to snowfall. And so that's what we see happening here. For the rest of the Northeast, this pulls out as snow flurries to moderate snowfall. And by Monday, finally Monday, this moves out. But it still could be snowing, maybe heavy at times up into Boston Monday morning. This is how long the storm could be. It could start snowing in Boston very late Saturday night, and it could stop snowing Monday morning. All right, that's a long duration system, but that finally moves out. And yeah, you got yourself a winter storm on the GFS. Canadian model. All right, this is looking pretty similar to the GFS. We look at what the Canadian model is showing. Notice how this moves out and the system here. And the cold air is actually farther south. That's a big sign for more snow in areas farther south as well. But you can already see that warm air coming up. You've got the same 1,032 millibar high pressure, so GFS and Canadian are locked in agreement with that. All right, but here it comes. It comes up, and the Canadian model is a lot more aggressive on this block of ice here, the shield of freezing rain that's going to be moving up through the Cumberland Plateau area. All right. And if you're northwest of there, the Canadian model is in support of some snowfall, some early snowfall starting to show up here for areas into southwestern Virginia. But we can already see snow starting to enter Ohio. So on the Canadian model, it's in support of the starting out as an all snow event for Ohio. And you can see why it's showing out is because it's picking up on this cold front being in place far south enough, all right, that some areas more widespread are going to see that snowfall earlier on. But this continues to move up. We see again that heavy snow, maybe just a few miles to the west of what the GFS was showing, but there it is in between West Virginia and Virginia. That is definitely a big check mark there that we're probably going to see the heaviest snow at first in that area. But here it comes, and bam, this really gets going. We're seeing extremely heavy snowfall. I mean, look at these snowfall rates, guys. I mean, this is very heavy snow entering Virginia. This is extreme western Virginia into West Virginia, and then into southern PA, and then there it is again, western Maryland, guys. I mean, these areas are just going to be under the gun for big time snowfall in the Canadian model, and that continues to move up. But the Canadian model is just showing more rain for areas farther inland on southern New England, and it brings this low almost directly through Long Island, pretty similar to the GFS. Again, you got heavy snow knocking on New York City's door. It's so close, guys. I feel so bad for areas around New York City. I am around New York City, so I feel bad for areas around me as well. All right, but it's just all these low pressure systems, they have to bring some warm air up with them. And yeah, that's what we get here. But very heavy snow, and this would bring a lot of heavy snow into Philadelphia. Maybe areas just to the northwest of there would see the heavy snow, and Philadelphia would be replaced by rainfall. But yes, same areas on the GFS. The Canadian model is in support of maybe even heavier snow than the GFS is showing, but this moves up into Boston, and this becomes a Boston banger of a snowstorm there. And then that cold air begins to dive down behind it. It shows that backside snow, all right, but it's not as widespread as the GFS was showing, but more snow into New York City and Long Island as the GFS was showing by Monday, all right, but this is really deteriorating by Monday morning, all right. So now we look at the European model finally. What does the European model show? Well, I want to just start out by showing you guys the OZ run to show you how different this is and how much this has changed. Do not take this as an official forecast. Do not tell everybody that it's going to snow a foot in New York City. This is probably wrong, guys, based off of the sudden movement of these models, the change in these models. Watch as it brings that low pressure farther south, all right? And this band of snowfall, therefore, is able to spread because that cold air has more room to fill in, farther south here. And so this brings maybe the worst conditions into the city, and you see that freezing line is just south of Long Island, entering Long Island, basically. That's how close it is. But it stays as all snow for New York City on the OZ European model, which was the model that came out in the middle of the night last night. All right? This has changed dramatically. We look at the 12Z from today, all right? And look how different this looks, all right? So waiting for it to come up, here it comes. And the European is a little different than the GFS and the Canadian. It's starting out as all snow for southern Ohio. That's something we saw there. But instead of that very heavy snow, we see more of an ice and a wintry mix, a pretty nasty wintry mix for areas in between Virginia and West Virginia rather than heavy snow. I think that could change and be tweaked later tonight on the OZ European model that's yet to come out. All right. Um, but that's definitely a differential there in the models with the European disagreeing with the GFS and the Canadian model. All right, we start to see snow entering Maryland and Northern Virginia, guys. Just so you know, this is the more reliable run. This is not the OZ from last night. This is the 12Z that came out this afternoon. All right, notice how the system comes up, and it's still in support though of that freezing line. All right. The low pressure is basically right here, and it's probably going to be moving up like that. Same similar track, but I think that the European model is ticking. It's trying to be. It's staying in between, taking this low farther south, uh, and taking it way up north like the GFS and the Canadians, right in between there. So that's going to bring that freezing line right through New York City and the rest of Long Island. But we can see southern New England still seeing a banger of a winter storm. This is Sunday. This is Saturday here, getting into Sunday. All right, we can see the heaviest snow is into portions of Virginia. That snow, though, the heavier snow that we talked about on the the GFS and the Canadian model into Western Maryland, that's shoved off to the west a little bit more on the European model. So the European model, I think, is filling in those areas that was closer to the warm air, but was still seeing the heavy snow on the GFS and the Canadian model with a little bit more of a wintry mix or just a nasty ice storm, and then going back over to just straight up snowfall. But this is a big winter storm for Boston if this run of the European model it turns out to be correct, and we see also similar conditions entering portions of Maine as the system rides up the coastline, and this actually crosses through that low, crosses right through Cape Cod. And then the European model on that backside snowfall, it's still there, that extension, and we see it entering Long Island and southern New England and then back into the Northeast, but it's just not as big as the Canadian model. So I would say it's the GFS model hyping that portion of the system up the most. Then it's the Canadian, and then it's the European model. All right, snowfall totals. It's a big thing that everyone wants to know. It's a big thing that's been changing. This is probably the thing that's been changing the most. Here's the GFS. All right, this is the 18Z GFS came out today. All right, and here it is. It's that big swath here of purple. This is all over 6 inches of snow. That is a lot of snow, guys, and that is plowable snow. All right, that's measurable snow for sure. This is going to cause, widespread not power outages, but rather travel problems. All right, this is going to be that morning commute on Monday. I think could be a little messy depending on how well those roadways are kept. But Sunday, definitely Saturday to Sunday, I know everyone's going to be off work, but still, if you have to drive for some reason over the weekend, I'm sure most of you guys do drive over the weekend, those roads could be slick. Some roads will have ice on them. Depends on where you are, but a lot of roads will definitely have some snowfall, and there could be dangerous travel conditions while the snow is coming down. Because remember, this is going to take all weekend for it to completely move out. But where do we see the heaviest snow? Well, we'll start up here into Boston and then southern Maine. All right, Boston on the GFS going for around 10 inches of snow. That's a lot of snow. Nothing that you guys haven't seen. It's not like, I should reword that. It's not like anything that you guys haven't seen. All right, but that's a significant winter storm. Areas to the west of that, we see 2 pockets on the GFS of over a foot of snow. That's a lot of snow as well. All right, but southern New Hampshire and Vermont, we're going for pretty much the same totals as Boston, maybe a little bit less, so maybe just under 10 inches. So the extreme southern Maine here, we can see very close to Boston here. That's where we see right around just over 10 inches of snow. The rest of Maine, though, seeing really 2 to 4 inches. Some areas could be higher and some areas could be low. All right, now we go to the rest of southern New England, getting into Connecticut. really 8 to 10 inches what you could expect. Rhode Island is actually seeing more, and northern Rhode Island getting up to a foot of snow here. Same thing for down areas down towards Cape Cod, but a little bit less through Cape Cod because we see that low pressure could take a track through Cape Cod, bring less snow and more rain into that region. But into southeastern Massachusetts, maybe over a foot of snow on based off the GFS. That's what we see. In areas of upstate New York, we could be talking about over 5 inches of snow. Down through southern New York, we're hanging on to 10 inches because it's that band of heavy snow that we saw in all of the models. It's going to come up from this area and it's going to be moving kind of like this. All right. Now, here's the big question for the city. A lot of people want to know the GFS in the city. 5 inches of snow. That's a lot of snow. All right. That's a substantial winter storm for the city. That's certainly going to break the snow drought. I do think, guys, that this will definitely break the snow drought for New York City. All right, I think this will definitely will. This is going to bring measurable snow to New York City. I'm not sure. I'm not very certain though on how much snow exactly. For areas off to the east, though, in the Long Island, we see similar amounts just south of 5 inches here. Or, if you didn't get what I was meaning, I meant just below 5 inches of snow here for the rest of Long Island. So 2 to 4 inches. All right. And then into northern New Jersey, we can see right where that band of heavy snow was positioned just to the west of New York City. That's where we can see above 7.5 inches of snow possible there. There's that freezing line though, that very sharp cutoff between 6 or 7 inches of snow and almost none. All right. In the western PA though, we could definitely see widespread areas above 6 inches, getting really close to about a foot here, maybe over into areas closer to New Jersey. So really northern New Jersey up towards extreme eastern Pennsylvania. That's where we could see the heaviest snow from the system. Maryland, though, all of northern Maryland really seeing right around 10 inches, so 8 to 10 inches of snow there. And then that pocket of heavy snow in between Virginia and West Virginia, the GFS is talking about over a foot. I think that could be a little overhyped. We'll just have to look at the next model. So we're not going to be including the Canadian model because I really want to get through this update without making it too long. So we're just going to be comparing the GFS and the European model like we have been. The European model, it's starting to click a little bit with the GFS, but there's still some big holes to fill in. All right, starting out here again into Boston and Maine. Much more snow to Maine. I mean, look at this more widespread 6 to 8 inches of snow, some locally higher amounts possible. North of this southern portion of Maine, the Gulf Coast of Maine there. All right, we could definitely be dealing with 2 to 4 inches. All right, but that tiny pocket though, down in extreme southern Maine, we're definitely going for over a foot. The European model is going for the hardest hit area being Boston. I think Boston could actually end up being one of the hardest hit areas from the system. Because believe it or not, I think all of the models have been bringing that same band of extremely heavy snow all the way up to Boston, and this is directly centered over Boston, 16 inches of snow. So just under a foot and a half of snow for the Boston area. This is including all the coastline of Massachusetts, and then down to Cape Cod. We see those lower snowfall totals, but definitely just under 10 inches of snow, maybe all the way down there. But western Massachusetts, we're seeing just under 10 inches of snow, but some areas seeing above 10 inches of snow. In Connecticut, 10 to 12 inches of snow, with areas north of there could definitely see over a foot possible. Rhode Island seeing similar snowfall totals. Upstate New York, we see more widespread, 8 to 10 inches. And then down to southern New York and New York City. Here we go. 3 inches of snow right now. 2 to 4 inches would be your forecast from this. If you look at Long Island, central Long Island, 5.2 inches. So it's almost flip-flopped how we saw in the GFS. More snow for the city and less snow for Long Island. European model showing more snow for Long Island, less snow for the city. So that's a difference there. That's pretty specific. All right, but that is a difference there. Northern New Jersey seeing less snow on the European model, a lot less snow. Only about 5 to 8 inches of snow in northern New Jersey. But here it goes. Eastern PA, European also in favor of definitely over 8 inches of snow, maybe just under a foot. But I think definitely a few areas, could see definitely just under a foot of snow. All right, and then right by this little pocket here, I'll just circle it for you guys. But right into uh, portions of Maryland, and then in between Virginia and West Virginia, where the GFS and the Canadian model were showing that heavier band moving it through. All right, the European model, it's only going up to about 10 inches of snow at max for this area. All right, and that would begin to West Virginia, these mountainous regions. The GFS was way overhyping this if the European would play out here, this exact scenario, because the GFS is right now showing over a foot of snow for this area. So big difference there. Still a lot of holes to fill in, a lot of question marks remain. All right, but that was the latest information on this big snowstorm coming up. All right, what's next? What's happening after that system? Well, you guessed it. There's another one coming up, and this one's going to be even bigger. It's because of this giant line of storms that is coming through the Pacific. It's this army of storms it's the train. I like to call it a train of storms that continues to just one by one move into the United States. We see, upper level lows and troughs just continue to move in, and they just become these massive storm systems, and they just become so dynamic that into January, with the cold air nearby, we could be dealing with monster snowstorms. But we're tracking a second system coming up January 8th to January 10th. It's been that time frame since back towards Christmas time. I was tracking the system, and believe it or not, this same one is turning out to be happening. This could be a really bad situation for over 50 million Americans here. So here it comes. We're getting to January 8th. This is already looking like a potentially a strong system. You've got rain showers starting to come up here into the south central United States, with cold air and snowfall starting to come up into the high plains there. And then this storm just it's kind of stays in one place for just half a day as it strengthens here, and that just all that precipitation begins to gain intensity as this low pressure continues to drop. 993 millibars, and here we go. We see thunderstorms starting to develop there on that frontal line going down through the deep south. You got heavy snow developing on the north side, and you've got yourself a nasty winter storm developing. We're getting to Tuesday night into this is Monday night into Tuesday. All right, this is the middle of the night, Monday to Tuesday, and here we go. You got a 993 millibar low, starting to take a jump up to this line of rain showers and thunderstorms. But you got winter storm conditions for areas into the Midwest and the high plains. All right, the forecast has not been changing much, guys. We're in the short to medium term right now, so we can get into a little bit of specifics. Not going to give you guys an official forecast, obviously, because this is still over 100 hours out. But this is definitely going to happen. The storm system, all right. And we're definitely going to be talking about some big topics here in the weather world: severe weather and snow. All right. But here it comes on the north side as this meets up with a big band or a big boundary of cold air here. This is your jet stream right here. It's a little bit of a ridge starting to form there, and the reason you have that big dip in the jet stream is because you got that classic negatively tilted trough look. This was looking like a positively tilted trough earlier. Now this is becoming negatively tilted, which means you've got cold air coming down behind the system. These winds coming out of the northwest are going to be strong, the northeast, but these are going to be strong winds going into Kansas. And if you have those winds, guys, strong enough into Kansas here, mixing with this potentially, very heavy snowfall, you could be dealing with blizzard conditions into eastern Kansas. But that's that cold air stream that's going down into Texas, and you got warm air, extremely moist air coming up, surging from the Gulf, that's bringing up all that warm air with it. But notice how that shield of snow and frozen precipitation begins to spread as this moves up in the northeast. All right, this is looking like more of a rainfall event for the Eastern U.S. This is total washout for the southeast. strikes again. Swing and a miss on seeing a winter storm for the southeast. And now there's a lot of winter weather lovers out there, but it's just that cold air is just not getting far south enough. But I think it's gonna take some time. But I think February sometime you may start to see some snow down there. But anyways, back to the forecast here. Once again, not an official forecast. This moves into the Northeast. The rest of the United States will click into the Eastern United States. All right, and you've got very heavy rainfall. This would be flooding rainfall, big flooding concerns if this were to happen here and play out along the eastern seaboard. And these winds, guys, may be the strongest winds that these winds will be ridiculously strong if this plays out. All right, I'm tracking this system pulling up so much energy from the Gulf and the Atlantic, so much moisture and energy that the winds could be so strong that we could see near tropical storm, maybe hurricane force. I don't want to talk about that too early, but I just want to make sure that everyone's prepared, because I really do think I have a strong feeling that things are really going to get bad here with those winds for especially southern New England, but all the way up and down this coastline. We could be talking about damaging winds. But we're starting to see big-time snowfall and wintry precipitation begin to enter the Northeast, the interior Northeast. The coastline, not really seeing any snowfall. All right, but conditions just get worse and worse as this moves into Maine here, that snowfall in the Northeast, and that gets very heavy at times too. You've got cold air mixing in with that precipitation on the backside, though, with that 977 millibar low. All right, but you've got cold air falling behind this, changing a lot of that backside rainfall over to snowfall. All right, if there were to be any rainfall left to change over at this point. But this is taking a long time. We're getting to January 10th here, which would be Wednesday, I believe, or Tuesday. I'm not sure. I believe this is Wednesday here. And this finally moves out, but that is an impactful system. And then we're watching piece of energy flying around behind it. We're getting pretty uncertain. We're getting pretty far out. All right. But I think there's going to be multiple threats for more snowstorms on the way. It just really matters on if we're going to see a piece of energy come out of the Western U.S. How strong is it going to be? And is there going to be any, more energy left for it to phase with? All right. So we return again to the SPC Outlook. We haven't looked at this thing in, I feel like, years. Just feels like years. All right. But we meet again. All right. So yesterday, the SPC Outlook, Storm Prediction Center made the decision to issue a rare Day 7 slight risk for severe weather. So basically, what that means is that 7 days out with this storm being, there is enough confidence for them to issue a slight risk already, which is a 15% risk of severe thunderstorms in an area. That is extremely rare, and that's very dangerous, all right? So it's in this yellow shade here, not to scare you guys, but this does mean that there is big, there's definitely a big question mark there. How big is this chance for severe weather going to get? And I think that I don't want to get, up to, I don't want to talk about potential risk levels here, but I do think that this could be an outbreak. I think it's going to be I think there's going to be a chance for this to become an outbreak. All right, there's just a big certainty here, or just a big gut-wrenching feeling that things are going to turn south here, and it's not something you want to see. All right, but we have a 15% risk for severe weather. All right, in this shaded area, this is going for the Gulf Coast, all the way from Florida, or I should start here into Texas. This is southeastern Texas, right around Houston, Lufkin, Texas, all the way out to the coastline here, the far western coastline of Florida, including Mobile, Alabama. This is New Orleans, into southern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, and Alabama are all included in this. All right, but you've got Houston, Texas. You got a population of 13 million people. All right, so a big populated area. This will eventually spread as we get into the day 1 to 3 range, because that's when we can get the categorical outlook. But if this does get upgraded to a 30% risk, that usually means that an outbreak is on our, it's coming. All right. This just means that there's a big chance for something big to happen on day 6, which would be Monday to Tuesday of next week, which is the 8th to the 9th. All right. So, we're not going to be talking about specifics on the severe weather because we're still far out, but we're going to be talking about what potentially could be causing that severe weather. All right, so quickly, I just want to look at these wind gusts here, just these current projected wind gusts on the GFS and the European model, just because they're so ridiculously strong on the East Coast. I need to show you guys this because this is just looking like a ridiculous, event coming up here. All right. By the way, these are wind gusts. We're not looking at sustained winds. These are wind gusts. All right. Notice how we're already starting to see that big moisture stream coming up from the Gulf, and that's already starting out as winds that could be producing up to 60 miles per hour here. Look at that, 64 miles per hour just south of Atlanta, Georgia. There. This is getting into Tuesday, so it's looking like Wednesday could be the big day for areas up into southern New England. But my oh my, look at this. Look at this. This is a freaking mess, guys. Look at this. Alright, so these purples you see in here, these are wind gusts getting up to 70 miles per hour. That is 70 miles per hour. That is near hurricane force. Alright, in the pinks here, or sorry, the light blues, we're talking about 60 miles per hour in there. This entire area right now on the GFS, the GFS is showing 60 mile per hour wind gusts, winds in excess of 60. Upstate New York, right around the Finger Lakes region, GFS going out for 74 mile per hour wind gusts. That is borderline Category 1 hurricane force winds. That is very strong. That's going to cause widespread power outages, trees down. It's going to prompt high wind warnings. All right, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I just have a big feeling that something like this could happen. I don't think this is going to be, as strong as what we're seeing here, but it could certainly be maybe just below this level here. But we're talking about upper 60 mile per hour winds going all the way through areas in northern PA down towards New York City, Long Island, and New Jersey. By the way, which on the coastline of New Jersey, near Brick and Atlantic City, we could be getting over 70 miles per hour. New York City, talking about, and Long Island, talking about, upper 60s for your wind gusts there. And just this is, incredible how strong these winds would be. I mean, getting into Long Island, 80 mile per hour wind gusts. That is insane. All right. And, this is such a dynamic system on its own. But the fact that you have a massive snowstorm, severe weather potential, so certain that the Storm Prediction Center issues a day 7 slight risk and potential for 80 mile per hour wind gusts, 80 miles per hour in upstate New York, which is over Category 1 hurricane force, is just ridiculous. All in one storm. All right, but we got to watch this, and this has this has so much potential to be such a destructive storm. But this is getting pretty ridiculous. But the GFS is in favor of almost 90 mile per hour wind gusts out here along the Massachusetts coastline. I don't think this is going to happen, guys, if getting this strong. But oh my goodness, that is a ridiculously strong swath of wind gusts. And I'm going to quickly go through this, but just off the coast of Maine, 90, 91. All right. I don't think it's going to happen being this strong, but I think something, I don't think it's going to be this magnitude, but something like this, like a widespread damaging wind event like this could be on the horizon here for the Northeast and then the Mid-Atlantic. All right. So for the final part of the update, the final 2 parts really, we look at the severe weather portion of this storm system. What could be causing this? I want to go through this really quickly because we're closing in on 50 minutes long. All right. So basically, these are your dew points here, which is how basically tells you how much moisture is on the ground level. All right. And so a high dew point is basically over 55 degrees. All right, and so when you have dew points in the 60s, that's considered very humid and moist conditions. That's in support of thunderstorm development. I apologize about scratching my nose a lot. My nose is just very itchy right now. All right, but here it comes. This is your line of storms here that you could even see visible on just the dew points. We see dry conditions off back into Texas, but eastern Texas is very moist, just downright humid here, and we're getting almost into the 70s for your dew points. That's enough to support big time thunderstorms. And here we go. We're getting right around 70 degrees for your dew points. Getting into Louisiana, widespread 50s and 60s though, right around the Gulf Coast into the rest of the southeast. And man, it continues to persist, and we see how far this can go. And there's that moisture supply. We're still dealing with dew points in the 60s, which could support thunderstorms as far east as North Carolina and the Mid-Atlantic. We could even see, look, 50 degrees. I mean, that's not the highest of dew points, but just to let you guys know that the moisture supply is going to be huge with this system, and that's why there's a big potential for a big outbreak. And when we say outbreak, we mean a widespread region that's impacted by severe thunderstorms. The reason this could be widespread is just because this moisture supply does not stop, and so therefore, as the system moves through different areas, all those different areas see that moisture supply, and that is able to fuel those storm systems to continue to move on. All right, or I should say, those thunderstorms. So for the final portion of the update, we look at just our upper level winds here, because with the moisture supply mixing with the kinematics, guys, this could really be a dangerous event. This is when tornado potential comes into play. But you've got very strong upper level winds. You've got your trough moving through, digging down here into the southern U.S., and you've got very tight, strong winds, really just starting to, just go shooting up that frontal boundary here of that low pressure. This would bring damaging wind gusts. With those thunderstorms, this would bring tornadoes. I think this would be an all hazard event, but this really gets ramped up right as this moves through Texarkana, into Louisiana, so the 4 corners states of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana. I think that area could definitely be under the gun for severe weather. This persists. Do you see? This persists though. You see these yellow shades here? All right, that's where we can see the strongest winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere. All right, and these really just continue to become strong, and we're seeing winds well over 100 miles per hour. But this is up in the atmosphere. All right, but even very strong atmospheric winds, they play a crucial part in just the weather pattern in general. But this gets maybe to its strongest point right over Alabama, where you can see maybe the strongest of winds in the atmosphere, and this continues to move off to the east. But that upper level jet is going to be downright ripping when the system comes through. And again, with the kinematics and the moisture supply lining up, this could be a big event with severe weather, and this could be an outbreak. All right, so that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for coming to watch. I'll see you guys in the next video. Apologize about it being so long. I just had to give you guys so much information all at once. Stay tuned. Once again, I've got more updates on the way. My school schedule isn't too busy because we just returned to school, so things shouldn't get too hectic anytime soon. But watch out. I mean, I don't want to scare you guys. That's one thing that I really should not do, and I don't want to do that. But I just want to make sure that everybody's prepared, because this is going to be a storm that's going to impact the majority of the country, which most of my viewers are from the United States. I don't really know any reason why I would get viewers from any other portion of the world, but that is completely fine, and I don't want to disrespect that. And I would actually love it if I got viewers that are just interested in weather and want to see what's going on in the United States. That's completely fine, but I just want to prepare my subscribers, because I know the majority of my subscribers are from the United States, and I want to prepare everybody because that this system, I think, is going to be very dangerous for especially the eastern half of the United States. So thank you all for coming to watch this video, and I'll see you guys the next